Hello, and welcome back to another video on the book Talmud Jmmanuel, Chapter 8, Healing of a Leper Sick in His Inner Nature. 1. When he descended from the mountain, there followed him a small crowd of people. 2. And behold, a leprous one, who had become sick in his inner nature, psyche, came and knelt before him and said, Master, if you will, you can make me clean from the evil inner nature of my thoughts. 3. And Jmmanuel stretched out his hand, touched him, and spoke long and deeply, suggestively to him. Then he said, I will do it and help you. Be clean, be cleansed from the evil of your inner nature, just as you want it, and have the certainty that you will be healed. And immediately the sick man was cleansed from his evil inner nature of his thoughts. Explanation. The evil inner nature of the leper was based on a simple thought and feeling-based or psychical disorder, from which burdened the man because he could not cope with his sickness of leprosy. Solely the consciousness-based will of the one sick in his thoughts and feelings, that is, in his psyche, was the decisive factor to use his own energies and powers and to generate the self-healing powers and bring them to application. At the same time, only the necessary knowledge and ability on the part of Jmmanuel was needed to bring the sick man to reason into the right thoughts and feelings, by which the psychical damages were then eliminated. And when it is, therefore, said today in the vernacular, that faith can move mountains, then what is meant by this are the knowledge, the wisdom, and the ability through which powers can be released by the consciousness, which seem incomprehensible and appear as miracles to the human beings who are unknowing of the teaching of spiritual knowledge. What is still to be explained is that this story in the New Testament is presented completely distortedly and does not explain the thought and feeling-based and cyclical damages of the leprous one. Rather, these are concealed, and it is claimed that Jmmanuel had healed the leprosy. In the scroll of Judas Iscariot, however, this story was presented very differently, in a logically followable manner and in a rational description. So it is also logically followable, and does not have the appearance of an impossible divine miracle. 4. And Jmmanuel spoke to him, See to it that you tell no one. Instead, go and show to the priest that you are released from your evil inner nature of your thoughts and are clean again. 5. You were healed through the power of your spirit, consciousness, and through the wisdom of knowledge, and through your power of thought, intellect, and your insight, rationality. The centurion at Capernaum. 6. When Jmmanuel went to Capernaum, a centurion walked up to him with a request, saying, 7. Master, my servant lies at home, incapacitated with gout, and has great torment in his thoughts to accept his suffering. 8. Master, I have heard your new teaching, and I know the truth of your wisdom, which states that the human spirit, consciousness, can perform miracles through the knowledge of the truth. 9. Jmmanuel spoke to him. I will come and make him well if he wants this and does what I tell him. 10. The centurion replied, Master, I am not worthy of it, that you should enter under my roof, for you stand much higher than me in the knowledge. So only say the word, and my servant will be well. 11. I am only a regular, simple human being, subject to authority, and under me are soldiers. And if I say to one, go, he goes, and to another, come here, he comes, and to my servant, do this, he does it. 12. But Jmmanuel said, see, I am also a regular human being like you. And if I am more knowing than you, I still do not stand above you or above others. 13. But the centurion insisted on his trust, on that which he said. 14. When Jmmanuel heard this, he marveled and spoke to those who followed him. Truly I say to you, such trust I still have not found in the land of the God believers, for trust in the truth is not sought after by them. 15. But I say to you, many people will come from the east and the west, from the south and the north, and they will understand my teaching and will recognize in the knowledge the wisdom. But the God believers will not understand it, and thus they will talk behind, defame me. 16. At the same time, it will be so that they and their children will be expelled by other God believers. So they will go out with their belief into the darkness, remain unknowing, where there will be wailing and the chattering of teeth. 17. The confused teachings of the God believers will give rise to bloodshed and hatred and war in their land and unto the ends of the world, all around the world, across 2 times 1,000 and more years. While God's zeal, God fanaticism will bring death and destruction over the land and over all the world through the obsession, greed for might, and vice, selfishness, and vanity, imperiousness. 18. Truly, I say for all God believers, turn away from your false and confused teachings, irrational teachings on 10 gods and gods. This is also said to the authorities, rulers, official bodies, and the scribes and the studying scholars, scientists, who are believers in a God, because they all will bring destruction to the masses of the human species unto the ends of the world, all around the world. 19. The people of the God believers in this land, in their deep confusion and in their self-love, selfishness, and self-conceit, megalomania, believe themselves to be a chosen human species, but so too will all God believers give themselves over to a hazy picture, succumb to a delusion, imagination, into the distant time to come, future. However, it is by no means as they assume, believe, because all are more disloyal and unknowing than the unknowing themselves, who lack the secret of creation's laws. And Jmmanuel spoke to the centurion, go in with me to your servant, so it will then happen to him as you have accepted. And they went into the centurion's servant, and Jmmanuel gave him a herbal potion, which calmed him. But then he talked deeply, suggestively with him for a long time. And so he understood to accept his suffering. Thus, his torment was alleviated that same hour. Explanation. The servant did not become healthy immediately, but his torment of thoughts was soon alleviated by a soothing herbal potion. Moreover, Jmmanuel talked in a suggestive manner to the sufferer, without this one having any clue as to who was speaking to him. But it was in such a wise that he could add something to it with his own consciousness and with his thoughts and feelings in order to relieve his suffering. In addition, it It was also the principle of the Roman centurions and Jmmanuel's consciousness powers working suggestively purely from the outside, which helped the suffering to be alleviated. The whole thing had nothing to do with spiritual healing. As such, acts are erroneously called nowadays in a religious and esoteric fashion. Spiritual healing is a completely wrong designation because what figures into it is, in truth, nothing other than the suggestive consciousness power of the human being, through which, if a human being is able to generate them, healings of illnesses on one's own body or with other human beings can actually be successfully brought about, but this is extremely rare. Spiritual healers, or spiritual healeresses, as these guilds are called in the present time, are, however, usually human beings who are only dazzlers and who cannot bring to application any suggestive consciousness powers to heal illnesses among themselves or among other human beings, but who rely only on the fact that these ones mobilize their self-healing powers through their belief. And precisely with regard to the esoteric and religious believers, there are many who, due to their esoteric and religious as well as sectarian belief alone, desperately cling to deceitful spiritual healers who financially exploit the belief of those seeking their help and who build on the fact that these ones free themselves from their sufferings by their belief delusion, even by activating their self-healing powers. In this wise, even the belief of other persons can become effective in those who are sick, if their belief is full of hope or if their suggestive consciousness powers are strong enough, in order for them to be transferred to the sufferers. Thus, those who are sick do not necessarily have to be directly treated suggestively in a consciousness-based manner. Rather, the indirect form by others who want the sufferers to be healthy is enough already. Unfortunately, there are, with regard to spiritual healing, charlatans on a mass scale, as well as delusional believers who actually believe that they have spiritual healing powers and help from God, Jesus, angels, and saints. Spiritual healing, in truth, has nothing to do with the spirit of the human being, and even less with the God, with Jesus, angels, or saints. Rather, as said, the healing is based on suggestive consciousness powers. As a rule, the whole thing is carried out in a right manner through suggestive speaking, interpersonal moments, trust, and, under certain circumstances, also with the aid of touch, the laying on of hands, or other actions. The Philippines are, unfortunately, especially to be cited with regard to false spiritual healers, for it is there where there are many such dazzlers or deceivers who have dedicated themselves to the spiritual healing ripoff, and who, in truth, are not able to generate any useful suggestive consciousness powers. Their machinations are, as a rule, based on legerdemain, particularly with regard to so-called psychic surgeries, etc. Legerdemain, I guess. According to storage bank records, not one man or woman in all areas of the Philippines should have the ability or is capable of the development of the necessary suggestive consciousness powers or of the use of suggestive consciousness powers. Not even the well-known alleged spiritual healer, Tony Agpaoa, who years ago became a talking point with regard to spiritual healing. All the fuss of the Filipinos in the aforementioned relation is based solely on deception and legerdemain trickery, and on the fact that the sick human beings develop their own suggestive, consciousness-based, self-healing powers through their belief in the alleged spiritual healers and spiritual healeresses and their alleged powers by which they actually become healthy in different cases. Nevertheless, most of the alleged recoverers often only push away their sufferings for a certain time. Through their imagination, after which these then become acute again. However, when the imagination slowly flattens out, it's also to be said that many human beings with the most serious diseases such as cancer set aside their conventional medicinal and medical treatment and the necessary medication due to the criminal machinations, resulting in an untimely demise or death. Thus, it is not without problems to trust in spiritual healers and spiritual healeresses if one does not want to increase his or her health problems and even play with one's life. Because through the imagination of one suddenly becoming healthy due to a spiritual healer's powers, the suffering, in reality, and as a rule, does not vanish. Rather, it is very often only suppressed in order to appear again in full force at a suitable opportunity. Real healers or healeresses, on the basis of the use of suggestive consciousness powers for the activation of the self-healing powers of those who are sick and those who are suffering, are extremely rare, and in the whole world can almost be counted on a single hand, in which case the alleged healers and healeresses in the Philippines are absolutely excluded, as well as the majority relating to this in Europe, South America, Russia, and the USA, etc. Thank you. Have a good night. And Salome.